Hello, this is my re-recording of my Bronfenbrenner project. So, I'm going to look at um, 2010 going into 2011. I was 13. I had a array of chronic medical issues that were both being diagnosed and previously diagnosed being treated. I was in 7th grade, most of the time I was 13, and then summer through that beginning of 8th grade. And at the time, I was a competitive gymnast, and that's where a large amount of my identity was held. So my microsystem consisted of my immediate family. Lived with my mom and my younger sister Bella, who was 9 at the time. My parents had been divorced for probably 4 years at this point, and my dad lived about half an hour away. So I have two half siblings, Caden and Casey. I consider Caden to definitely be a part of my microsystem. I saw Caden probably at least once a week, and I didn't really have any contact with Casey. Todd really entered my life as a part of my microsystem at this point. At the time, my mom hadn't married Todd yet, but we were transitioning to move to where he lived and worked, and we spent a lot of time with him. My school really influenced my development. During 6th grade, was at a charter school with 15 kids in my grade. When I was younger in elementary, it was 12 kids in my grade. And my new junior high had about 600 kids in my grade. So that was a big jump. The only people I really knew were those I knew from gymnastics and those who went to my elementary school. And then 8th grade, I also moved again, but this time to a smaller junior high where there was about 100 kids in my grade. I definitely consider my gymnastics team and club to really be a part of my microsystem. They directly influenced a lot of my life. And my close friends, I have 3 close friends that I was attached at the hip with, especially Serena, who I've known since, I guess she was born. She's 6 months younger than me. And we've been attached at the hip ever since she was old enough to come to daycare. And if I wasn't staying at her house, she was staying at my house. Like, her mom drove me to practice. My mom would drive Serena to soccer practice just so we could, like, hang out. And then I was receiving infusions on a regular basis, and there was always this same set of 4 other families who were there the same day as me. We were on the same schedule, and they, at this point, were definitely a part, after a while, of my microsystem. I hadn't met any other kids that would get infusions or had the same struggles I did, and even their parents became really a big part of my life. Like, I still keep in contact with all of them years later, and when I'm going home over Christmas break, we're all getting together to go out to lunch. So, these things definitely influenced me in my development. I think I specifically influenced like my relationship with my dad. So previous to this, I'd gone probably about a year without talking to my dad. And this is when we really started to reconnect and grow our relationship again. And so that was a really big part of my life. And then I had just come off of 2 years of injury and not really being around the gym as often, or being around but not doing everything. And then when I came back, I was moved up to a higher level team, and some of my peers weren't who had been there and healthy, and that really changed a lot of like the social dynamics in our gym, with gymnasts and their parents, and that was a really big part of my life then. And then school, I definitely, because of my illness and things, probably made a big impact on the teachers and administration and what kind of job they had to do. My mesosystem, so my mom interacted with like every other microsystem I can think of, but particularly doctors, my school teachers, the school administration was a huge thing. My mom fought 11, almost 12 months with insurance to get me treatments, my gymnastics club, just about everything else. My entire family was really involved in my gymnastics, which I was really lucky, and that really influenced how much I enjoyed the sport. If my parents and siblings weren't involved in it, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much or stayed. The school and medical system butted heads a lot. I would have medical professionals write me notes about my absences or that I needed accommodations, and we would receive a fight back from administration. And that made it really hard to want to go into school. And it just felt like they didn't even trust the medical system, or the medical system couldn't convince them to give me the accommodations I needed to be successful in school. Todd specifically played a huge role in our new school district in moving there. He sat on the school board for about 6 years prior to our move, and when my mom had initially went in and tried to transfer my 504 plan and make accommodations, we hit a really huge fight with administration, and we continued that for about the first 2 months, and then eventually they figured out that Todd was the person my mom was marrying, and things changed very quickly, and we had kind of minimal issues the rest of my schooling in the district. My dad was on long-term disability with chronic medical issues, and so just him not always being around because he didn't feel good, or we spent a lot of time in the hospitals visiting when he was hospitalized. During this year in particular, he spent 2 different stays in the ICU with respiratory issues. It just really, it stopped him being able to really be influence on my other microsystems, even though he really wanted to be. And then my mom was working from home for flexibility. So she was kind of more involved, I think, with a lot of my other microsystems than what would be expected, but she had the flexibility with her job. My mom, every time we went to the infusion center, we got ice cream on the way home. It had medicinal purposes, we're pretty sure. It became our tradition for the year I received infusions at the specific center before I started doing them from home. I found a lot of Facebook posts that mention ice cream on the way home. My exosystem, Todd's family was a really big influence on this, especially when we started going to family holidays or things. And then I have 2 step-siblings that are much older than me. Andy, the younger one, was graduating college when our parents got married. And this, I think I also had a large influence on. The marriage of our parents was kind of a sore subject for one of my step-siblings, and she really wasn't acceptant of my sister, my mom, and I, and would do just about anything to make us feel discluded out of things. The pediatric medical system in Minnesota played a huge part in who I became. It taught me to be really patient and also very flexible. But waiting for appointments and to see specialists that you need to see but are 8 months out for new patients. But there's only 2 of them in the state, so you wait. And when you have a handful of specialists you're seeing, I could easily spend 1 day a week out of school just traveling for medical appointments. We were also 2 hours away from many of my physicians, so it turned into an all-day adventure when we had medical appointments. Blue Cross Blue Shield, like I said, my mom fought 11 months to get infusions for me. I testified at an appeals court hearing for our final appeal. That happened when I was 12, and by the time they had made their final decision, I was 13. I think maybe I didn't necessarily have a huge influence, but my mom definitely did. I'm sure there were a lot of people who looked at our case when she called again and went, "Here we go again," as she would ask the same questions over and over until she got answers. And then the 2 school districts I grew up in at this point, like I said, I definitely probably tested school administration and teachers just out of the accommodations I needed. Particularly when I moved to the smaller school district, the social worker who was creating my 504 plan had never created one before. So we were kind of showing them how to do it when it probably should have been the other way around. And in the really large school district, we were just told that they don't really like to make accommodations like that for chronic illness when I'm in and out. And I spent my 7th grade year homebound for about just over 3/4 of my year because that was the best suited accommodation, not necessarily for me, but it's the accommodation that the schools and my teachers would follow. So it worked out better than just doing the smaller accommodations in a classroom. So I kind of really ended up not having much of a social life that year, outside of gymnastics and the friends I had from elementary school, which I don't think is a bad thing. They were definitely understanding of me not being able to go and do something because I didn't feel good, or, "Hey, can you just come over and watch movies? Like, it's really hard to get off the couch today." And they never asked questions at this point, so that was super helpful. My macro system, section 504, was very large in just my education. And then people's beliefs about invisible illnesses. I didn't look sick, probably just really, really tired sometimes. And people don't understand why some days it was easy to participate in gym class or go to gymnastics and try really hard. And then 2 days later, I would show up to practice and I would be doing different workouts than my teammates because that's what my body could do that day. School also had a hard time, teachers in particular, with trying to figure out why they should accommodate certain things. Policies regarding child support and disability. So my parents were divorced, 50-50 custody, but my mom, we lived with her full time because my dad's medical issues, which means the child support she should have been receiving was dependent on his disability from the state. So we didn't get very much. And then the idea of parents working with a chronically ill child was a huge part. My chrono system, moving was really huge. My mom got remarried right before my 14th birthday, which I'm really, really glad she did. I gained a really awesome family from it, and Todd is one of my biggest support people. The government shutdown of 2011 really kind of rocked our world. It kind of led to me not seeing my dad for 3 weeks because gas was expensive also. And then the passing of the Affordable Care Act, it was renewed that year, made a huge difference on my medical care. Thanks for watching!